Hey, it's Don, the Auction Professor. Today I just wanted to address a few comments and questions and some issues for your fourth quarter. Now, I've gotten a ton of emails, a ton of responses, a ton of comments on fourth quarter specifically. A lot of it's complaints they're not seeing big increases in sales, things aren't happening like they expected. And I've looked into this and I've talked to people about it, as I've said, and I've looked at their stores. One thing I can tell you, if you only have 150, 200, 300, even up to 400, 500, 600 items up, you're not going to see any big leverage or anything changing at this point. You need to have a lot of stuff up to have an overall big amount of stuff in your store so you can have the sales that other people are seeing. And another aspect to think about, like around holidays like Halloween, sales are usually slower around the holidays. People are out, they're doing things with their kids, they're shopping, they're going to parties. So, October 30th, the 31st, and November 1st are usually slower days. Next Tuesday, you've got elections, you've got voting going on. So again, you're going to see slower activity during that day as well, too. So again, don't panic this early into the game. Some sales pick up. November is always better than October. December is always better than November. January, February, March. It keeps rolling on in from there. But you've got to understand that if you only have a small, limited amount of items up, you're just not going to see a huge amount of difference or leverage. It takes thousands of items to see a huge influx in Christmas sales. And as I've been saying through this entire summer session for the last, quarter, all of third quarter, I was constantly repeating that you need to get as much stuff up as you can. We have all hands on the floor. We buy everything we can. We list everything we can. It's a constant feeding of the machine, the eBay machine. You're constantly adding stuff to your inventory. But at this point of the year, we've bought a ton of stuff. I've got a ton of back stock. Again, it's not dead piles, it's back stock. It's items that we buy to sell at a future time. I don't worry about having a lot in stock sitting around here because I can't sell it if I don't have it. So again, take that into consideration. If you live in a northern area of the country, you're going to have, issues where there's not going to be sales. There's not going to be estate sales. There's no garage sales in the winter. You're not going to see very many flea markets. And if they are, they're only indoor flea markets, which limits the amount of people that will be there, limits the amount of items that will be there. So again, this is the slow time of the year for buying for us if you're in a northern state. So again, keep that in mind. And as I said, if you don't have a ton of merchandise up, don't expect a lot to happen. There's nothing wrong with you not doing super well based on the amount of listings you have. As I said, if you only have a couple hundred listings, you won't see much of an increase. You won't see much of anything. You don't have a vast enough of material out in your store to be available to buy to begin with. It all starts off small. It's going to take you time. For us to get the amount of listings we have up, over 47,000 right now, it took us a long time. We're 6 years in and we just got to 47. We almost had 48, but we slacked off just a little bit to do some other activities related to our business. So again, everything I show you isn't my whole business. We do much more than what you see. We do much more than what we share. What we share is a small percentage of what we do. As I said, I do have other stores. We do sell on many platforms. I'll probably delve into that a little bit here too. And I will address to some extent in my Patreon group some insider info as well too. So just an FYI on that. But again, don't panic. If you don't have a lot up, you can still be cranking it up through the end of November in hopes of increasing your sales, because fourth quarter is great, of course. First quarter of next year, you've got a couple months that will be very good too, that will continue that same trend in sales. January for us, February for us, March for us is as good as it is for fourth quarter and first quarter. So again, just keep that in mind. You've got to address this from many aspects. If you're not seeing leverage on one site, you should start listing on another site or figure another way to get more items up. Don't invest a ton of money until you know it's going to work. Don't invest a ton of money until you know you're going to be able to make, your ends meet, to make the bills. That's one of the biggest things. And as I said, I hear questions on this a lot. I have, people saying, we're not seeing it. I've gotten all this stuff up. Again, look at your store. Look at what you have. When you're first starting off, you're going to be listing items that aren't probably worth listing. That's a common mistake everybody makes. I made it myself. So again, it depends on what you have up and how much of it you have up. You know, if a store only has 20 things on a shelf, nobody's going to keep coming back to it. So again, it's going to take you time to build up a clientele, a repertoire of people that constantly come to your store. We sell to the same person constantly, every single month. As long as the people keep having a good experience in our store, with what we sell, they're returning customers constantly. Most of my business, a majority of it, I should say, 60% at least of my business is based on return customers. So again, if you've only got a handful of stuff up, you only have a couple things in one category and those things always sell, you don't have enough to get the draw. When people are looking to watch or follow a store, they want to make sure it's a store that has things they want, that are going to routinely list new things that they want. So, you know, you have to take that into consideration as well. So if you have only a handful of something, it's not going to be enough draw to bring somebody back to your store. So, you know, if you figure out an area that sells really well for you, your next problem then is going to be, how can you find those items again to, you know, keep that momentum going? With clothing this time of year. For those of you who are doing the thrift stores and trying to make your ends meet on buying clothing from thrift stores, you know how hard it has gotten. You haven't seen anything until you've tried to source in fourth quarter. Sometimes in January, first quarter of next year, you might see some good influx of clothing that's been dropped off from Christmas gifts and stuff. That's one of the better times to look, in my personal opinion. But for the most part, you're not going to find every day, you know, scores unless you're in a real high-end, ritzy area, a big town or something like that. The biggest town close to me is Toledo, and it has, you know, a couple 100,000 people, maybe 300,000. I haven't looked at their local standpoint, and that's not even enough to carry over with the thrift stores here, because as I've said, Savers, both of them, I had 2 Savers closed down here. Some of the other stores have closed down. There's been at least 5 decent-sized thrift stores that all couldn't make it and have closed down around here. So again, it depends on your market. You're always going to have a bottleneck somewhere in the business. You'll hit one at some point, you'll hit a wall, things will stop, and you'll be all panicky. But the point to get around that is just to find a way to either fix the bottleneck, alleviate it, or, you know, find sources for whatever the case may be. Usually the bottleneck for most people is sourcing. So again, that's going to be your issue. And as I said, I bought through the entire summer. So if I don't buy anything for the rest of the year, I have nothing to worry about. Now again, this is my philosophy. It doesn't mean it will work for you, because I don't know your sourcing abilities. I don't know your sourcing locations or places to source from. I have no idea on your knowledge level or your experience with the entire process. So again, it all takes time. You can't expect to start this year, have a couple hundred items up, and going to be scoring left and right. It's a lot of work. All of those people who tell you it's easy to do, you flip, you sell 50 jeans or 50 of this, you're going to be making it. It just doesn't work that way. There's no way for most people to source 50 pairs of jeans a day. It just doesn't work that way for most people. And I'm not saying that there aren't resellers who actually can score 50 pieces of clothing, good clothing, every single day, but they're so far between. It's 1 in 100 shot as to who's going to be able to sell what. So again, that's what you got to look at for this session here. Again, if you were listening and you were listing stuff throughout the summer, hopefully you have like 1,000 items or better up. You will see a difference, you know. And again, stay away from auctions for the most part, because the auction market just isn't what it used to be. Bins are the way to go all around the border. There aren't multiple bidders on things anymore unless they're really rare items. So again, pay attention and know your area, research everything. But that's what I have for you today. It's just a touch on fourth quarter. It's something you need to pay attention to. You know, I can't stress that enough. Fourth quarter makes it or breaks it. Again, if you're not doing a lot and you only have a little bit of items up, don't panic. It'll take you a little while. It might take you till next year to see the difference, because you have to get the items up. There's no shortcut to getting a ton of items up other than hiring somebody or doing a virtual assistant, which takes it out of your control to some extent. So again, that's what I have for you today. Hopefully that gives you some ideas and some thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified when I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.